The wind howled through the cemetery, cutting through the silence like a haunting melody. Michael, a self-made millionaire, visited his son's grave for the first time in years, the memories of that tragic day still fresh in his mind. But when he arrived, he found something completely unexpected, a young man kneeling by the tombstone, his face full of anguish. The encounter would change Michael's life forever, unraveling a web of secrets, guilt, and deception he never saw coming. Title: A Millionaire Finds a Young Man at His Son's Grave. You won't believe what happened next. Michael Reeve was a man who built his empire from the ground up. Starting with nothing but ambition and grit, he turned his small business into a multi-million-dollar company that spanned several industries. Despite his enormous wealth, Michael's personal life was marked by tragedy and loss. His wife, Claire, had passed away when their only son, Jonathan, was just a boy. The two of them became each other's world, with Jonathan being the only family Michael had left. Jonathan was everything to Michael. He was bright, charming, and compassionate, with a heart full of dreams. But just as Jonathan reached the prime of his life, tragedy struck. At the age of 24, Jonathan died in a mysterious car accident. The loss shattered Michael, leaving him a shell of the man he once was. He threw himself into his work, burying the pain, avoiding the graveyard, and pushing away any reminders of his son. For years, Michael avoided visiting Jonathan's grave, fearing the wave of emotions that would resurface. But something in the back of his mind had been nagging him lately, pulling him toward that place. On the anniversary of his son's death, Michael finally gave in and decided to pay his respects. The cemetery was quiet as he approached Jonathan's tombstone. But what he found was shocking: another young man standing by the grave, staring down at the inscription with a sorrow Michael had never seen before. His clothes were simple, and his expression was one of heartbreak. Michael's heart raced as he approached. "Who are you?" Michael asked, his voice tight with suspicion. The young man looked up, startled by Michael's presence. He hesitated for a moment before answering, I'm Noah. I knew Jonathan." Michael's brow furrowed. He had never heard of this Noah before. Jonathan had never mentioned him in all their conversations, yet here this young man was, standing at his son's grave with the kind of grief one might expect from a close friend, or something more. Questions buzzed through Michael's mind, but he forced himself to remain calm. "How did you know him?" Michael asked, his voice quieter this time. Noah lowered his gaze, his hands trembling as he placed them on the headstone. "Jonathan and we were friends. Really close friends," he said, pausing as if searching for the right words. "We met in college. He was everything to me." A flicker of confusion crossed Michael's face. He thought he knew everything about his son's life, but this young man, this friendship, was something new, something hidden. Michael's heart clenched as he realized how little he truly knew about Jonathan's life outside of their home. "You were close," Michael repeated, his tone laced with doubt. "Why didn't I ever hear about you?" Noah shifted uncomfortably, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. "Jonathan didn't want to worry you. He didn't want to make things harder for you." Michael's stomach churned. What was Noah trying to say? His son had kept secrets from him. What had Jonathan been hiding all these years? The air between them felt heavy, like the unspoken words held a weight too great to bear. The conversation continued, slowly peeling back layers of Jonathan's life that Michael had never seen. Noah shared stories of their time in college, how they had met, bonded over shared passions, and supported each other through difficult times. But as Noah spoke, there was something else, something more intimate in his words, something deeper than friendship. It left Michael unsettled, as though there were still pieces of the puzzle missing. As the day wore on, Michael found himself torn. Should he trust this young man who claimed to have known his son so deeply, or was this just a grieving soul looking for comfort in shared loss? The emotions bubbled to the surface: regret, anger, confusion. But above all, Michael wanted answers. Noah stood there, silent for a moment, before finally speaking the words that changed everything. "Jonathan and I, we were more than friends." The world seemed to tilt for Michael, the ground slipping away beneath his feet. His heart pounded in his chest as the reality of Noah's words sank in. Jonathan had been in love with this young man, and he had never told his father. Michael's voice faltered as he asked, "Why didn't he tell me?" Tears welled up in Noah's eyes, and he wiped them away, trying to steady himself. "He was afraid, Mr. Reeve. Afraid of what you'd think. He thought you wouldn't accept him. We wanted to tell you, but things were complicated. He always said you had enough on your plate." The weight of Jonathan's secret crushed Michael's heart. His son had been living in fear of rejection, of not being accepted by the one person who should have loved him unconditionally. Michael's throat tightened, and for the first time in years, he felt the sharp sting of tears threatening to fall. "I should have known," Michael whispered, his voice breaking. "I should have been there for him." Noah placed a comforting hand on Michael's shoulder. "He loved you more than anything, Mr. Reeve. He just didn't want to disappoint you." Michael felt the flood of emotions surge through him: guilt, sorrow, anger, regret. How could he have missed this? How had he failed his son so completely? But the day wasn't over yet. The conversation took an even darker turn when Noah revealed that Jonathan's death might not have been an accident at all. "There's something you need to know," Noah said, his voice trembling with fear. "Jonathan was being followed. He had enemies, Mr. Reeve. People who didn't want him to live his truth." Michael's heart stopped. Enemies? What was Noah talking about? He thought Jonathan's death had been the result of a tragic accident, but now Noah was suggesting something far more sinister. Who were these people? Michael demanded, his voice rising with urgency. Noah hesitated, glancing around as if afraid they were being watched. "I don't know their names, but Jonathan told me that he'd been receiving threats. People found out about us, about his life, and they didn't approve. He was scared, Mr. Reeve. Really scared." Michael's mind raced. Could this be true? Could someone have wanted his son dead simply because of who he loved? The thought was too much to bear, but the look in Noah's eyes told him it was the truth. Together, they began to unravel the mystery of Jonathan's final days. The threats, the fear, the shadowy figures who had followed him, watching his every move. It became clear that Jonathan's death was no accident, it was murder. Determined to find justice for his son, Michael delved deep into Jonathan's life, following the trail of evidence left behind. He uncovered messages, letters, and anonymous threats sent to Jonathan, warning him to end his relationship with Noah or face the consequences. The more Michael uncovered, the more he realized how much his son had been suffering in silence, all because of the societal pressures and hatred that surrounded him. But the biggest revelation came when Michael discovered the identity of the person behind the threats, a business associate of his own. Someone he had trusted, someone he had worked closely with for years, had been the one orchestrating the campaign of terror against his son. In a shocking confrontation, Michael confronted this associate, demanding answers. The man, cold and calculating, admitted to everything. He had learned about Jonathan's relationship with Noah and had deemed it inappropriate for someone of Jonathan's stature. Fearing it would damage his business dealings, he had hired people to harass Jonathan, leading to the fateful night of the crash. The confrontation turned violent, with Michael's rage boiling over as he lashed out at the man who had taken his son from him. In the end, Michael managed to gather enough evidence to bring the man to justice, but the victory felt hollow. Nothing could bring Jonathan back. With the truth finally out, Michael stood once more at Jonathan's grave, this time with Noah by his side. The air was heavy with sadness, but there was also a sense of peace. They had uncovered the truth, and justice had been served. But the cost had been too high. "I'm sorry," Michael whispered, kneeling beside his son's grave. "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm sorry I didn't know." Noah placed a hand on his shoulder. "He knew you loved him. That's all that mattered to him." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the cemetery, Michael felt a weight lift from his chest. He couldn't change the past, but he could honor his son's memory by fighting for the love Jonathan had fought so hard to protect. In that moment, Michael made a vow, to never let fear or prejudice destroy the lives of those he loved again. Jonathan's death had been tragic, but his legacy would live on, through love, acceptance, and the truth. And as Michael and Noah walked away from the grave, they knew that the real journey had only just begun. The end.